When you buy $25 worth of Buffalo Wild Wings holiday gift cards, you earn a bonus card worth $5. It's like buying a new TV, then getting another TV that's a little smaller for free. But you can't trade those TVs for wings because they're a metaphor. Bonus cards. We do it for you. Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports.
Terms and conditions apply. Valid at participating locations in New York, Florida, Rhode Island, and Canada for a limited time while supplies last. Limit 4.
Blog Talk Radio. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of A Crazy Dream. We are on live with FELECIA, the marketing maven, business owner, entrepreneur, and woman who discovered much of her purpose earlier in life. Thank you for joining us, FELECIA.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So a friend of mine actually told me to reach out to you, and when I looked into your page, I saw some of the stuff you were doing. I was just like, oh my gosh, I was loving you. So,
wow.
Yeah. So could you tell us a little bit, because I know that you started a little younger, and some people think like, oh, you know, you have to wait to be an adult to start a business. Could you tell us a little bit about your first run at entrepreneurship?
Right. Yeah, I'd love to. So honestly, the official time when I first started thinking of myself as an entrepreneur and thinking that, hey, I think I do want to start my own business like in life, really wasn't until I was in college. And I took an entrepreneurship class as an elective. And it's interesting that you asked that question, because on the very first day of that entrepreneurship course, the professor asks us if we believe if entrepreneurs are born or made. And from that point forward, I started to look back on my life and realize that this is like the mindset that I've always had. So yeah, when I was a little kid, I mean, the very, very first business I ever had was my school had just got vending machines, but it was way back in the day, like when vending machines were first starting to like appear everywhere. So this vending machine only took coins. So essentially what I saw in second grade was all of these kids were coming with their parents' money, like they would ask their parents for money for the vending machine, but then they get to school with these dollar bills and they couldn't use it because it only took coins. So I just so happened to, me and my family growing up, they wanted to teach me the value of saving my money and all of that. So anytime that me or my family members had spare change laying around, we would always put it in a little like coin bank. And at the end of the year, we would cash it in and buy presents for everyone for Christmas. So at a young age, I was able to just understand the basis of entrepreneurship, which was if there is a demand for something and you have the supply, there's a business. So I just started bringing change to school, and, you know, they'd essentially give me $1, and I would give them $1, and I would give them 75 cents in coins. So I was making essentially like 25 cents off of each transaction. And ever since then, you know, just little things like that throughout my life I found myself doing. And I always kind of thought of it as a hobby. I never took it seriously until that entrepreneurship course when I realized this just might be what I'm meant to do. So long-winded answer, but that's when.
No, I love it. And I love that you talked about that, because a lot of times we see potential in children and we don't nurture it. But like you said, you started out with that small idea, but you had that concept of what entrepreneurship was. And it really resonates with me because, Mike, I have a really similar. Yes, definitely. But that's for another show. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, how you use that. Like, you know, you said you took that course, you know, when you were in school. So how did you use that course to also help you move into your first official business, you know, that you grew? Mm-hmm.
Well, the timeline of events is kind of interesting. So when I got to college, that was in 2010, and probably around in 2011, I came to my friends with an idea to start this social media business on campus, because this was when Twitter and Instagram were really just starting to take off on campus. But I noticed that there wasn't like a single voice for students on campus. So I had this idea of doing that. And when I shared it with my friends, I mean, we just came together and we took it seriously, and it became way more than I could have ever imagined it to be on my own. So from there, we began a social media business on campus at Hampton University called the HU Underground. And, I mean, it just took off. We had 3/5 of the student population following us. We had like 250,000 views on YouTube. And even though all of the founders, we've graduated, the organization still goes on to this day. So I took the entrepreneurship course because we were having a lot of success with that. And I wanted to know a little bit more about, you know, how we can make it better and maybe how we can expand that into something that is not just on Hampton University's campus, but nationwide. So I took this entrepreneurship course. I got really into it. I found out that, oh my gosh, I'm totally born to be an entrepreneur, and I never noticed it. And essentially, as I was approaching graduation, I came to my friends with an idea for an app, but they were more interested in, trying their hand at a corporate job or, working for other people and not really wanting to continue on with what we had built. So from that point forward, I took the lessons that I learned in college. I outsourced the first app that I made, which was called Be in the Know. And a year after that, I decided to learn how to code on my own, and that's when I created the College Hive app, which is seeing the most traction out of anything. So that's where I am now. Now we're here. College Hive just came out 2 months ago, and this is just a moment in time right now.
I love it. So, I love that you talked about teaching yourself to code, because a lot of people approach me and they're like, how did you start doing that? Could you talk to people about, what made you decide that you were going to learn how to create on your own, and what inspired you to take the time to learn that skill?
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, after I had outsourced the first app, the Be in the Know app, it cost $15,000, which is really not that much. Once you actually start doing research on how much apps cost, you realize it's kind of an expensive business. Mm-hmm. So I outsourced that. I basically told my parents, hey, don't get me a graduation gift, don't get me a graduation car, just invest in this app. And they did. So I outsourced that. But what I began to see was that, it's really nothing like having a design in your mind and then being able to manifest that on your own without having to communicate it to someone else, without having to describe it, without having to, go back and forth with, oh, is this what you mean? No, that's not what I mean. Is this what you mean? Mm-hmm. So it just got to this point where I realized that it was too expensive as far as money goes, and also too expensive as far as time goes for what I was trying to create. And I actually had this super serious moment, where I was trying to decide, am I going to stop with the Be in the Know app and attempt to learn to code, not knowing how long that would take me to learn, and just embark on that journey of doing something that I never thought I would ever do in my life? Like being a coder never even crossed my mind. Or am I going to continue to seek investment and just try to knock down all those doors with what I've gotten? And I've realized that empowering yourself is always the best option. I mean, why wait for someone else to do what you can do on your own? So I decided to learn how to code. I mean, I learned all online pretty much. I went to udemy.com and paid maybe $40 for a course that taught me pretty much everything I know. But the main thing that pulled me forward was the fact that the vision for College Hive was so vivid that I would have felt bad about leaving it behind, if you know what I mean. Like, it was so strong that this is what I should do, that all of the frustrations that came with learning how to code online seemed trivial in the long run.
Yes. So I love that you talked about that vision, because a lot of times we will choose paths that are simpler because it feels like it won't take as much work. But could you tell the people listening a little bit about how that vision started, and, what steps you took to kind of nurture that?
Yes. So the very first time I began having these thoughts about this app was due to the successful social media business I had in college. And I just began to realize that, hey, if this can work on one campus, it can work on every campus. There just needs to be a different platform, and it can happen. I mean, if as above, so below. So if it's working here, it can work everywhere. It's just about what are the means to get that done? What are the means to get it out there? So the idea was strong, but in all honesty, at that point in my life, I also began to get really heavily into like new age books and self-help books and The Secret and Law of Attraction and yoga, and all these things were happening at once. So I think one of the strongest skills that I've learned, and it came from all of those books that I've read at that time, was the power of creative visualization. So being able to really tap into your imagination at will and create things in your mind before you actually see them. So I began to actually visualize, yes, the app, but also the response to the app and the reactions. And I began to think of all of these little details about this entire process. And I'm not going to lie and say that every single detail I thought of has come true. But it is a powerful thing to be able to have such a vivid picture about what you're working towards. And that's something that really pulled me forward and continues to pull me forward. Like the hard work that I do today, coding for hours and hours at a time and weeks at a time, I'm not doing it, without an idea that a year from now, this is going to all pay off. So I'm thinking of those moments, thinking of where am I going to be a year from now, visualizing that. And it's interesting when I take the time to imagine 2 years from now, it's almost as if the ideas that would exist then start coming to me now. So essentially, to answer your question, it's all about me realizing the power of the imagination and harnessing that power more and more and more. That really helped me to come up with the idea and continues to help me to come up with the idea, but also is a strong motivator for me to work towards those ideas that I have.
Yeah. So, I'm really into visualization as well. I try meditation, but I usually fall asleep. But
oh, my gosh, that is my boyfriend.
Oh, okay, I'm not alone then because I always feel bad.
He's the one that got me into it. But it's so funny. I always make fun of him because he'll say he's meditating, and then I'll come in, and he'll be asleep. And I'm like, you're just sleeping. Yes. But I think there's something there as well, because if you get in a meditative state and then you fall asleep, why isn't that meditating?
I agree. I agree.
It's still therapeutic.
I definitely agree. So, some people listening might be listening and thinking, visualization, how do I do that? Or what is that? Could you tell people how you might get into that process or into that mind state where you do visualize these things? What things you might do before you go into a visualization exercise so they can maybe try it at home?
Yeah. So I don't really, it's kind of, how do I say it? When you are it, you don't see it. So I do it throughout the day now. It's not like a special thing that I practice or I do or a ritual or anything like that. But when I was first starting out, it was. So when it was first starting out, I bought a book called Creative Visualization. It's probably one of my favorite books ever. And there was actually exercises in that book to how you can do it. One of the places that I noticed back then that was a really creative space for me was the shower. So a lot of times, even to this day, I'm just so used to it that, when I get in the shower, I'll just visualize, it could be anything. I'll visualize my day tomorrow. I'll visualize, a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. I like to, lately, what I've been noticing, I've been visualizing is my company. What is the type of company that I want? And the fun part about it to me is realizing that since this is all in your mind, like there are no boundaries. So, I mean, I personally like to get really specific with it. Like I'll visualize even down to the furniture. What is the furniture that's going to be in my corporate office? Like I think about all of those types of things. And, I mean, the thing that I think is the most powerful is when you visualize it and you get specific, but then you realize that you're not visualizing for the purpose of what you're visualizing to come true as much as it's to get you in a certain mindset right now. You know, like if you knew, like let's say you got in a space where you were confident that you were going to be a billionaire in 4 years, and you got in that space for 10 minutes and you felt you believed it, it would be so much easier for you to do the work that you have to do right now because you're connected with your future, or at least what you're imagining to be your future. So for a beginner, I mean, I would definitely recommend getting that book because there are a lot of practices in there. But if they're not open to getting a book, I mean, it's really as simple as just thinking of your mind as a blank canvas and literally painting it with whatever future that you would like to imagine in that moment. It's actually something that's a lot of fun to me. Like I like doing it. It's fun. It's entertainment.
I love it. I love that you talked about the mind being a blank canvas, and basically, you know, it's almost like you're preparing for your future. You're creating the vision because, you know, almost like a map, right? It's like if you don't know where you're going, how do you know how you're going to get there?
So true.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And it's just getting just a clearer idea of where you're going. And like again, not necessarily visualizing to make it come true. That was a mistake that I made when I first started out. Like when people first get into the whole law of attraction thing and all of that, they think that they found a secret to how to bend the world to be however they want it to be. And once you live it and you become it, you realize that that's not necessarily the truth. You can't alter the future. You know, to this day, like let's say I'm building College Hype, I visualize my life 5 years from now. I'm a good person, you know, karma is not a factor in my life. I'm a positive person. I'm always thinking positively. I've done everything right. Tomorrow I can walk to my car and get ran over and someone can, you know, my hands can get amputated and I may not ever be able to code again. I mean, there's no way to alter the future. So it's all about what do you want to do in this moment now. And for me, visualizing for the future is the best way for me to get in that mindset that I prefer to be in the moment.
Wow. And what you just said is so true because there's no way of knowing what will come, you know, what might happen to us tomorrow or the next hour.
Right.
So
exactly.
You know, what might you say to the person who's listening in right now who has this really big idea, who doesn't have, you know, maybe friends who are willing to work with them, but it's just like, how do I get started or where should I begin?
You know what? That, like, whenever I go speak somewhere, that is always a question that kind of comes up. Like, someone comes to me and they say, hey, I have this idea for this clothing line, but I don't know where to start. And it's like the biggest piece of advice that I can give is you don't need to know where you're going to finish, and you don't need to know the second or third step. You just need to know one step in order to move forward. Moving forward only requires one step. And what I've realized is that if I take that one step, the universe shows me the next one, or the idea comes for the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And that's a reason why I say that even though this is business, it is spiritual to me in a certain realm because it has a lot to do with faith. And it's like, you know, if you truly believe in your idea, then it doesn't matter who doesn't believe in it, right? I mean, if you truly believe that you have this great idea for a fashion line or, you know, this great idea for an app or a website, then it really doesn't matter if your friends don't want to help you. It doesn't matter if you don't get the support. It doesn't matter if you don't get the investment. You'd want to do it just because it's something that you're genuinely interested in. And whenever you act on your genuine interest, the universe, what I've seen at least, is that the universe always responds to that and reacts to that. So as long as you know the first step, I mean, take that leap of faith, and then the next step and the next step and the next step will continue to show themselves.
Well, that is so true. No, it definitely is. Like my life is an example of that. So just thinking about what you said. You said something earlier. You said something about it being spiritual, and just thinking about when you look back or you reflect on how these things started. Back to second grade where you had your quarters. Where do you see yourself being in the future? What would you say is your crazy dream?
Yes. Wow. That's the question right there. My crazy dream. I would say the craziest dream that I can think of is for me to actually be the youngest female Black billionaire on the planet. Like that's what I'm going for. That's what I visualize. That's what I'm envisioning. That's what I'm going for every day, because I feel that the power of representation is really important, and I would love to be that for someone else. So I would love to be that and then have the 5-year-old be able to say, oh, if she can do it, I can do that, and I can do more. I feel that that's how society builds. And I think that that's how history is important, because when you look at historical figures and you can see that the accomplishments that they've made, it inspires you to realize that, yes, you can do the same thing, but you can also build on top of that. So my crazy dream is definitely being that, and it's making my mark in the tech industry. Personally, it's about me being someone of power and someone who has means enough to create the future as far as peace is concerned. So I believe that there are a lot of wealthy people and a lot of people of power who maybe they don't understand our generation, or maybe they don't understand what it's like to be a millennial, in middle or lower class. But I would like to be someone who is a millennial who just happens to have enough money to throw festivals where other millennials can come and tell their stories and kind of just bring people together. Now, that's something that I haven't visualized that far into the future, but I do know that if I am granted the opportunity to be the first Black female billionaire that's this young, that is what I would do. I would use my power to somehow think of something to bring everyone together. And I think that that's the greatest thing that I would be able to do in this lifetime.
I love that you're thinking of your life's work. I definitely see you creating what you envision as you've been doing so far. Could you tell everybody where they can find you, social media, your website?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of my social media profiles are my first and middle name. So it's Felecia GENET, FELECIA GENET. And my website, if you want to check out the app, it is www.yourcollegehive.com.
Okay, great. So, Felecia, I would definitely love to have you back on the show in the future so we can check in with you.
Sweet.
Yes, definitely. And everyone listening, you will be able to find this interview at acrazydream.com. You can always find us on Instagram and Twitter when you look for A Crazy Dream. And thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. This is super fun.
Of course. We'll definitely have you back. We'll be at your events. Great. Have a nice night.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Yo, everybody get up. Everybody get up. Everybody needs to understand that I'm more than simply a hype man for this rap group, just like Geico is more than just a company that can save you money. Geico also has fast and friendly claim service, so they can help you when you need it most. And while I do love being a hype man, I also love reading for children's audiobooks. Like Little Bo Peep, she lost the sheep, and she don't know where to find them. Yo!
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Danny, I just figured out that if I switch to Metro PCS, I get 2 Samsung Galaxy phones free.
Cool, Dad.
And I could be a super dad with 2 free Samsung Galaxy phones and call myself Double Galaxy Man.
Or you could give the second phone to your sidekick.
Yeah, I guess I could do that.
That's right. 2 free Samsung Galaxy On 5 smartphones are all yours when you switch to Metro PCS. Metro PCS. Wireless figured out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.